All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a truly profound psychological tragedy. Now, it's framed as this ancient myth, but trust me, it's really a story about the modern human condition. We're exploring The Dragon and the Golden Mask. I want you to imagine this incredibly theatrical, almost graphic novel-like atmosphere, where the deep, chaotic forces of human nature clash directly with cold, calculated modernity. Our source text uses these incredibly powerful archetypes to explore what actually happens when we lose our profound sense of meaning and the desperate, often destructive ways we try to get it back.
The text opens with this genuinely chilling declaration from the wilderness. Listen to this. I am the dragon, the ancient breath of the id. Now, the dragon here is a metaphor. It represents the raw, chaotic, ancient desires pulsing in our blood, the untamed forces of our deep unconscious. And the dragon is just watching, with this ancient gravity, as humanity makes a completely catastrophic trade-off.
Part 1. The Old Crumbling Temple and the Illusion of Rationalist Supremacy.
So the text describes how these master builders of stone and steel arrive on the scene, and they just tear down the old temple in their blind pursuit of effortless efficiency. They represent this absolute illusion of rationalist supremacy. But contrasting this totally cold, gray world of the builders is the dragon, representing the ancient stories of our ancestors and the raw, chaotic desires of the id. By choosing the builders and actively suppressing the dragon, humanity basically attempted to silence the blood. They cleared away the irrational myths of the past to build this perfect logical machine, and it resulted in a world that was physically secure, sure, but completely cold and gray.
What's absolutely tragic here is what was actually lost when they tore down that temple. The source refers to the suppression of the Imago Templi. Now, this wasn't just a physical building, right? It was the psychic center that once mediated between humanity's waking, rational mind and the deep, ancestral unconscious. It was literally their compass, and without this psychic center, the ancient stories were silenced, and the vital connection between our conscious selves and our archetypal depths was just completely severed.
Let's look at how this domino effect plays out into a tragedy. Step 1. The master builders succeed in silencing the ancient stories. This directly triggers Step 2, a profound psychological dissociation. The village is now completely cut off from its archetypal roots, and that inevitably leads to Step 3, spiritual starvation. The people are safe from the elements, their buildings are totally efficient, but they're drifting without a compass. They are completely spiritually famished.
Which brings us to Part 2, the psychic vacuum, a strange malaise.
With the external sacred structures gone, this creeping sickness took hold. It wasn't a physical plague, but a strange malaise. They had basically created a psychic vacuum. The text describes this as a gaping abyss left behind where meaning once breathed. And it's a crazy psychological reality. When human beings are deprived of deep meaning, the brain actually processes that existential void with the exact same neural circuitry as physical pain. The abyss within them was wide open, and the anxiety of that emptiness was just unbearable.
Part 3. Forging the Golden Masks, Hiding the Emptiness.
Faced with the sheer terror of this gaping abyss, the villagers couldn't just sit with the emptiness. They crafted what the myth calls golden masks. These are essentially elaborate social personas. They forged these brilliant, shining masks to hide two things: the profound shame of their own internal emptiness and the ugliest man lurking within their own shadows. They projected absolute perfection on the outside to completely conceal the fact that there was absolutely nothing left on the inside.
Part 4. The collective shadow, tribalism, and false idols.
You see, a golden mask is incredibly heavy to wear all by yourself. So to truly escape the anxiety of their emptiness, the villagers sought refuge in shallow collectives. The text captures this surrender with a hauntingly poetic visual. It notes that the people desperately turned to political banners that fluttered like dying wings in the village square. I mean, think about that imagery for a second. Dying wings. It vividly illustrates the profound tragedy of surrendering your individual soul to hollow, decaying political ideologies. They literally traded the soaring flight of individual meaning for the dying wings of the mob.
The source defines this whole dynamic as a regressive defense mechanism. The villagers merged with a collective shadow to find this shallow, hollow sense of belonging. And here is where it becomes incredibly destructive. This merging fuels tribalistic aggression. The text reveals that the hatred and aggression they directed at their neighbors was merely a projection. It was really just the discord and unresolved shadow rotting within their own hearts projected outward onto others so they wouldn't ever have to face it themselves.
And just look at the catastrophic sacrifices made to these false idols. To merge with the collective shadow, they had to sacrifice their unique human personality. They sacrificed the incredibly difficult inner work of reconciling reason and chaos. They surrendered the ultimate treasure of their individuality directly to the state. And the result? A stagnant, paralyzed world where the machinery of society is perfectly optimized, but the individual man is entirely broken.
Finally, Part 5. The Broken Bridge. The Fragmentation of the Self. Behind those shining golden masks, the individual was experiencing a catastrophic collapse. The text uses this devastating, highly poetic metaphor because they failed to reconcile their poor reason with the chaotic, raw desires of the dragon in their blood. They suffered a profound fragmentation of the self. They became bridges that broke before they could ever reach the opposite shore. Imagine the sheer agonizing tragedy of that image. You have this majestic structure of the human soul, arcing desperately over a vast echoing chasm, trying so hard to connect the rational mind with the deep waters of the unconscious, only to shudder, crack, and shatter mid-span, plunging into the abyss.
And so we return to the dragon. I waited in the dark night of the soul for the heroes to arrive, the dragon says. The ancient breath of the id watched from the uncharted wilderness, observing the tragedy of a people who chose the absolute safety of the ideological banner over the transformative, terrifying fire of the dragon's breath. They chose the collective illusion over the difficult reality of the self.
Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative challenge derived directly from the text. The villagers preferred this safe scaffolding of a communal myth to the difficult path of individual creation. So what about you? Are you going to hide behind a golden mask and surrender to the dying wings of a collective banner? Or will you face the dragon, confront the chaos within your own blood, and become the architect of your own meaning? It's a heavy question for sure, but it's one this myth absolutely demands we answer.